And yes, I am so happy to have Glen Diemar with us today. So Glen is the CEO of the successful New South Wales Explorer Australian Gold and Copper. And with their recent announcement of a $10 million capital investment by Adele in Mining, it is going to be awesome hearing from Glen today about opening up the Southern Cobar Basin to new discoveries using good old-fashioned geology. So this is going to be an awesome session. Please keep using the chat. We'll open up the floor at the end. And thank you so much, Glen, for joining. It's awesome having you here.
Thanks, Jess. It's great. And yeah, really appreciate everyone coming along. If I say anything that you disagree with, that's absolutely fine. Keep it to yourself. Talk to me about it afterwards. You're welcome to jump in because this is really just my thoughts and a bit of a rundown of what we've been doing in Australian gold and copper over the last 3 years, and a bit of a synthesis of taking the Cobar Belt south into what's called the Rast Trough, where a lot of great people have done a lot of great work before us. So I hope I pay a bit of homage to them today. Last week, yeah, we did announce a huge $10 million investment into us, which will be completed once we go to a shareholder vote. We're very excited to have that kind of recognition, and it was done at a 45% premium to our share price the day before, and I hope that sort of shows that venture capital is still out there and looking for a good home, and you can see that we really did take care of our existing shareholders, but also our new shareholders who we think we're going to have a wonderful career with. So I love cartoons, especially this one about the Cobar Trough. If anyone knows where this came from, please hit me up, because I don't, and it's amazing. Someone who has known a lot about the Cobar Trough has put this together, and I thought this cartoon about rocks was good because I think it highlights a bit of an analogy about what we do in discovery, but also about what males go through in most of their lives, trying to attract them for female mates. So yeah, if this cartoon is just, if you work in the Cobar Basin, it is amazing how complex the Cobar Basin is. But also this, we're always looking for ways to simplify it so we can understand it. Now, Cam really hit on this. Where did you find Cam, Jess? He just continues to be so outrageous. He's awesome. Meaning of Cobar is contentious. It has, so I'm taking it from this book, the 1996 Perspective, which was a conference out in Cobar before my time. But in 1840, in the 40s, the major South Australian copper mines were discovered and put into production, and that was really a huge, the big first copper rush in Australia, and that led then into the Victorian gold rush, which was a massive population boom for Melbourne. I think it was the fastest growing city in the world at the time. And what that did for New South Wales was led to a pastoral industry boom, because we had to feed the Victorian goldfields. So the pastoralists in New South Wales just boomed. Of course, what happens? There's a drought, big drought, and well dam builders and well sinkers moved through the Burke to Hillston route along the Lachlan River. Again, after a big drought, you often have a massive flood. These things the droughts are often broken by massive floods, as we kind of saw last year as well in the Lachlan. But 1870, big drought, a big flood burst the river, sent the dam builders inland into they were heading from Louth, which is on the Lachlan, just south of Burke, to push them into the Cobar Basin. Little did they know at the time, and they were going to head to Gilgunya, but they didn't know the way. So with the help of two Indigenous trackers, I love that we know their names. It's brilliant. Frank and Boney, paying homage to them, stopped at the Cobar waterhole on their way, which, so in this definition, Cobar means waterhole. And they saw all this copper oxide everywhere. They didn't quite understand the significance, but they knew that there was Mrs. Sidwell Crudge at the Gilgunya pub, who they took the copper specimens to. And why did she know about copper? Because she used to be I'm just going to move my people here. She used to be a bell girl in the Cornish copper mine. So that was essentially an ore sorter, which was typically a female's job and said to be quite a brutal job. So she was beautifully, I love this, that she was the most well-known mineralogist in the district. And she immediately recognized these and said, great, you need to go and peg that. So they went up to Burke, raised some cash, as you do, and pegged a claim. I love this. They took 3 tons of the copper oxide down, sent it up to Louth. They would have done that on a bullock, and they sent it down the Lachlan and the Murray all the way to Adelaide. Get the dates here, guys. Late 1870, and then they sent it down the river, and they got their assays return at 33% copper by February. So we're talking only like 2.5 months. So pretty much the assay turnaround time has not changed since 1870 to now. It's a bit that's kind of putting the labs on spot, but no, they are very good. But it is quite amazing how quick that turnaround time was for 3 tons of ore. So just to put it in perspective, Broken Hill was discovered after this. So quite amazing. So the mines were huge. I mean, just going back there, that is the Great Cobar mine in 1908. So it's just massive, right? Massive operations. And remember, we're quite a long way from a river here, from a water source. So this would have been dry old country back then. The Cobar Chesney Gold and Copper Mine in 1908. So a real mining district, and had a few different periods. Gold copper period, where these mines were mined. They are all polymetallic. And the gold only period in the famous New Occidental Mine, which is a very rich gold mine, through the Second World War. And then modern mining nowadays, we've got the CSA, Allura, Peak Mines, Manuka, Hera, which has actually just been finished, and then Federation. I'm sure I might have missed some there, but it's amazing that these things. So CSA mine was mined back, these have been mined for 140, 150 years. So it's quite incredible history. The CSA copper mine is the highest grade copper mine in the world, head grade of 5.5%. It was just purchased by Metals Acquisition from Glencore, the major mining marketing metals powerhouse. And it was purchased for $1.1 billion US. So these are high grade, narrow, but high grade mines. They're not the big low grade tonnage porphyry, low grade but high tonnage porphyry systems. They're low tonnage, super high grade, and that for a junior explorer like us is really what we want to target. Can't have a presentation without a Richard Shoddy slide, because they make a lot of sense, and they're just really interesting in terms of history. So how base metal deposits have primarily been discovered in Australia from the 1900s to 10 years ago. Typically, we've had a big boom in geophysics from the 70s onwards, and geochemistry came about the same time as well. Largely, mining has, or ounces and resources have been discovered from extrapolation from known deposits. But that's getting harder, right? It's getting harder now. And we exploring in this using geochem and geophysics, and I'll touch on that further, and a bit of conceptual geology as well. This is as we go further undercover and into new districts, into new search spaces. So Vlad David is a good friend of ours, and he consults with us a fair bit. He did his PhD on the structural complexity of the Cobar Basin, and he's got a whole bunch of wonderful slides that I can pilfer and adapt to use. So he put this together. It's a really good quick snapshot of essentially VMS deposits, but base metal deposits as well, structurally hosted. So Cobar, sorry, in the red and the green in this district. So old workings by the CSA mine, they just keep discovering. They're mining that down to almost 2 kilometre depth now. And Allura was discovered largely from geophysics. In the last decade, there have been these 4 great discoveries. So Southern Nights, Whirlong, Peel, and Hera by Peel Mining, and YTC, which became Aurelia for Hera. Actually, I don't have Federation on here either. Federation was right in the middle here between surface geochemistry and geophysics. So as we come to more modern discoveries, we move into the center and use more relatively new techniques. My non-exec director, Adam McKinnon, and I went through the same university at Western Sydney and did geochemistry together. He was a bit ahead of me, and quite a few marks ahead of me as well, because he's an absolute brainiac. He did his PhD in surface geochemistry and looking at how lead, arsenic, etc., move about in the oxide zone. This looks like a complex slide, but it's really not. Just read the bit in the yellow. This chart says how lead, copper, zinc move, and why you can trust lead and arsenic as in soil geochemistry, and why you can't trust copper and zinc. So we've got solubility, so more soluble up here in the top of the chart, insoluble down here. So zinc, it's off on a holiday. You can't trust a zinc anomaly at all. You know, it might cluster off there a kilometre away from its source. Copper doesn't move as far, so copper's down here in this zone. Really, it's just there to fool you because it likes seeing geologists waste money drilling targets with nothing underneath them. Copper soil targets, so don't drill a copper target. But lead is like me, the annoying younger sibling who won't leave you alone, so drill him, which is, you know, and then you couple it lead with arsenic. If you've got lead and arsenic, it'll form this mimetite, which is this mineral species here, forming these beautiful doubly terminated crystals at the CSA on CSA. So that sticks like shit to a sheep's ass in the soil, doesn't move, and is totally insoluble. And antimony is the same, forming an element, forming a mineral, an iron pyrochloride called tripuyite. So lead, arsenic, antimony, fantastic for drill targeting in the soil because it doesn't move very far. And good case studies. So really, I want to go through, if you back test all the deposits, all the mines through the Cobar Basin now, you'd have a pretty good shot at finding them using IP geophysics and lead in soils. And Allura was found that way. It was originally homage to the geophysicists, a magnetic bullseye from an aerial mag survey. And these are the they have the flight lines, I think the little dots, flight paths, yeah. So flight survey, look, if they didn't fly this one little, you know, it really only got it on 2 dots. So they got lucky there because it's only a small bullseye, but then they found it's got a 1.5 kilometre long lead in soil anomaly. And pretty much while they were waiting to drill this, they threw every geophysics, geochemistry test at it. It was ranked 5th out of 25 mag anomalies. It was the 11th to be followed up, and it was the only one that wasn't a paleo channel maghemite. So really good early geophysics there back in 1972, working out whether it's shallow or deep response. Then they did ground mag, they did auger, they did IP, and finally they a couple of years later they drilled it. First hole, how good is this? 50 meters of gossan and leach sulfides, and 23 holes later they defined a 27 million ton resource at eye-watering lead, zinc, and silver. And I think that's just an amazing discovery, one we'd love to have. What's tricky though, right? This is what we need to keep remembering, and why mineral deposits are so hard to find. You know, when you look at the long section, it looks easy, right? But look at the cross section. We always drill cross sections because it's better to get the stratigraphy. But it's so skinny, and the upper lode where they would have drilled first is only 100 meters long and 30 meters wide. So super easy to miss. Even though now it's a 45 million ton, or the global resource was a 45 million ton ore body. Sounds huge, right? How can you miss that? It's literally only 100 meters by 30 meters. Usain Bolt can run that in like under 10 seconds. So it's really, really small distance, and very easy to miss. So follow up your near misses is the takeaway there. And I think this shows really exactly that as well. Really easy to miss. When YTC drilled into Federation, they pulled together a lead in soil anomaly. Again, lead and IP chargeability, but lead in above 80 ppm on this outline here. And YTC drilled holes 1, 2, and 4. Sort of these, I think they were slimline RC at the time, and they missed. They just got slightly elevated lead zinc. And then Aurelia Metals came along, headed the geology department, headed up by my current non-exec director, Adam McKinnon, who's doing a lot of work with us as well, guiding us through discovery down the South Cobar. He led the Aurelia Metals geology team who discovered Federation, and they put in holes FRC5, which got 2 meters at 8, lead plus zinc, 4 meters at 11. I mean, for us at 5 million market cap, that's a discovery already with one hole. Hole 6, 30 meters away, 6 meters at 7, 3 meters at 14, including 3 meters at 14, and then 12 just above, where was that? 5, 6, 7 meters at 2. So even if this hole here hit 7 meters at 2, they probably would have followed it up. Now, serendipitously, about 50 meters to this way, which is what, east northeast, there's like 20 meters at 10% right here. It's scary how easy these are to have near misses, and you should always try and gain further funding for follow-up of these discoveries. So just, one of my favorite holes in the Cobar Basin, 21 meters at 45% copper and 32 grams gold, including 6 meters at 55% lead zinc and 110 grams gold. I mean, there's just eye-watering stuff. And that is what we're shooting for, and why we are trying to back test, work out what the best discovery methods are for all these major mines, and then use them in our district. The Hera deposit, this is their lead in soils. Red is around 100 ppm lead. So it's not high lead, right, for how much lead are in these systems. And then this orange box here, IP is the only surface electrical method that clearly sees the Hera deposit. I think it's really important. These are sulfide systems. They're not all EM conductors. Definitely not, because they've got a lot of zinc in them, and they don't have massive they've got a lot of pyrrhotite often, but they don't have massive pyrrhotite. They don't have massive chalcopyrite often. So EM is quite elusive. IP will get you in the region, and then you really just got to drill it. So a couple of general rules. Now, guys, I did put this on the ASX, on the Australian Gold and Copper ASX site this morning. So you can get this at any time and use this rule book if you're exploring in the Cobar Basin as well. Really, lith and structural mapping is really critical, but it's hard because we don't have a lot of outcrop. Typically, the hills are in our district, they're rhyolites, and everything else is undercover. It's just the rhyolites are really resistive to weathering. Find lots of Cobar analogies and work it out. And then lead in soils, lead arsenic in soils, antimony as well, and also understanding regolith mapping, because RAB doesn't always work. IP works the best, and I'll be talking you through that through our targets. This is taken from Scott Halley's VMS exploration rulebook. Drilling, hit thin massive sulfides, or near miss, yes, no, go again, keep drilling, find the growth faults. All right, so into our portfolio now. So we've broken up the Cobar Basin, and we've broken the Cobar Basin up into 3 districts defined by myself. You're totally contentious. You're welcome to argue the point, but it works in favour of my thesis, so why not? District 1 is the historic mining district, right? Old mines since 1870. It's hard to find another big one in a mature mining district, because we've all seen the curve, the law of diminishing return curve for deposit sizes in the in mature belts. The Rookery Fault is a really mature belt. It's got a lot of drilling. I'm sure Aurelia and CSA, etc., can find more resources along there. But for the easy or easier, potentially easier stuff, like Peel have done an amazing job in the last decade, and also Aurelia, at defining new resources heading southward. So Peel and Aurelia have really opened up the central Cobar district, and with some fantastic discoveries. Federation, Wirlong, Mallee-Bull, Wagga-Tank, Southern Nights, amazing job, and there's going to be more in that basin. But what that did is said to us all, hey guys, Cobar Basin, the rocks continue south, the deep tapping structures continue south, and there's going to be mineral deposits down there in the new open, in these new search spaces. So we went and pegged the whole Ras, or almost the whole Ras Trough. We're like the worst house on the best street, tiny market cap compared to all the big guys in the north, and we hold one of the largest tenure holdings in the Cobar Basin. So we have gone through and said, all right, map, we've really tried to define a new horizon that we can track for 100 kilometers, all the way from our northern zone, which essentially is the same structure that continues up to Mallee-Bull. Sort of the Moonlight Fault sort of runs all the way down into us. It's not the Moonlight Fault down here. It's called something else, the Warara. And then comes all the way south, and we see subfloor horizons or subfloor sediments the whole way down this fault. Intermittently, of course, because it's been shredded and busted up during the Tabarabran. But we think that is where we need to be. And every time we see a nice northeast or norwest conjugate set structure from the Tabarabran inversion, we see a nice shredded volcanic hosted basin with alteration, lead-in soils, and a nice big IP target that is soon to be drilled. So we've defined these 5 drill targets: Hilltop, Achilles South, Achilles North, and 2 up here at Planet that we're going to be drilling pretty soon. So taking a whole step back, I guess I just tried to piece together our basin like you would in a VMS terrain, because we've got a lot more volcanics in the south of the, in the Ras Trough than there are in the north. We don't have the big blanketing amphitheater group over the top. We've got turbidites, but not, but we've got a lot more volcanics. So I've really sort of taken this using the codes rulebook, Scott Halley's rulebook for VMS exploration, and which is where a lot of these images are from. So just trying to piece all this together and find the right ingredients that really makes this a prospective basin. So big granites, numerous different types, S types, A types, I types, etc. I heard someone the other day say S for shite, I for interesting. I thought that was a really good way to remember which ones are good to explore for. I won't say who told me that. It was good for my head anyway. So the Ras Trough is down in the south and totally surrounded by all various different types of granites. What these big granites are great for as well is later rheology variances as you're compressing the Cobar Basin during the different inversion events. So complex, I know, and you can, if you're interested, you can spend more time on this. I won't spend a huge amount of time. This was really for my head to understand the different phases of the Cobar Basin: the opening, the sag phase, and the rift phase, sorry, the inversion phase, and when different deposits were deposited. And this is really plagiarized from Peter Downs and John Fitzherbert's, not John Fitzherbert, sorry, Fitzherbert's amazing 2020 paper that they published through the Geological Survey on the structural or the metallogenesis of the Cobar Basin. So it's a really good exercise to go through with your own patch of ground, because everyone talks, oh, you've got to have big structures, but how the hell do you piece it all together and actually make it to make sense? You've got to make a start. It's incredibly complex, but it's just good for your head to understand the different events and where opening and closing will occur. It doesn't mean you can go to the ground and say, oh, look at that little structure there. That's a tabramoran. Like I don't believe you can. Maybe I can't, but I'm sure structural geologists can. But it's just a really good place to get your big thinking hat on before you go down to the prospect scale. So, fantastic work by the Geological Survey of New South Wales. God, they've just absolutely done so well through here. I'd really take my hat off to the Geological Survey and what they've done in New South Wales over the last 20 years. I really hope it continues. Piecing together the big structural, all the big structures of Cobar Basin, but all of New South Wales. So amazing job. And this is really just for imagery, but it makes sense in my head. You've got the Warara Fault on the west, on the east, bounding the Adaminaby, the Ordovician Adaminaby group, and it's it kind of looks like these big structures that have formed in these big VMS basins. I know it's not exact. You'd be able to question it and pull me apart, but just for our technical thinking of how these things may look in cross section, I think from codes, altered volcanic textures, is a really good analogy of these big, magnetic highs through here are the big sill complexes, big, long, 50, 80, 100-kilometer long sill complexes, a lot of pyrrhotite in these, which is why they're magnetic. And then you get the big structures forming adjacent to those big rhyolite sill or domes, and opening this basin up time and time again, squeezing and compressing, and creating the fluid flux and the deposition that we need. So just for your head space, that's where Achilles is, up in the north, and it'll make a bit more sense later. So just to our sort of trending down into our rocks, we've got a lot of felsic volcanism, huge amounts of felsic volcanism here, and it probably seems like more felsic volcanism than there actually is, because they all stick out of and form the massive hills, where everything else is properly undercover. These things are incredibly silicic. There's pyrrhotite all through them. There's halogens all through them. We've got a lot of fluorine in these, and a lot of flow banding. So submarine volcanism. Kate Bull did an incredible PhD mapping the Shepherd's Hill volcanics, which is in on the southeast of our project site. And that was through codes with Jocelyn McPhee as her supervisor. And Kate Bull has really done the work that's helped us understand our patch. Kate, if you're listening, great work. Love to get in contact with you, because we've gone through your thesis really quite closely, and it's incredible work. And it's just allowed us to understand. So you crack open a rock here, you see fresh pyrrhotite, you see fluorite all through it, and you see pyrite and in these myrolitic cavities or as phenocrysts. Really nice to see. I worked in Olympic Dam a long time ago, and did my master's on that. And there's so much fluorine in that system. Every time I see fluorite, when I'm looking for when I'm exploring, I get excited. Not because we're looking for an Olympic Dam, but just fluorine is good. All right, so the hidden turbiditic mudstone. So all up in the north, everything is a turbidite in the north. I mean, Carol Simpson has worked for 20 odd years doing the petrology through the northern Cobar Basin, and we're really lucky that Peel were kind enough to share her with us, and because otherwise we were totally lost. So we were really excited to see that when we drilled Achilles 2 years ago, we put the first drill holes into it. We got some turbidites, and Carol says, yes, these are the same style of turbidites that we see in the north. So they are true Cobar Basin turbidites, and not, in her opinion, not sort of the eastern Preston Formation lying over the top. So we're really excited to have the Cobar Basin really interfingering down here into us, into our volcaniclastic packages, with these rhyolite domes forming in and around them. So perfect analogy is Wagga Tank Southern Nights with the interfingering of rhyolite domes, volcaniclastics, and turbidites as well. You've got to have turbidites because volcaniclastics are not good at capturing fluids. Volcaniclastics are great at just being altered, and you'll get 1,000 ppm lead all day long, all through these systems. But you need something to trap them, and these turbidites appear to be doing just that. And we've tracked these turbidites for over 100 kilometers, and they're quite hard to find, but we're finding a lot more along our stratigraphic horizon that we first thought were there, and that the seamless geology first thought was there. So we're really excited to just be able to come along and and almost predict where these things are going to be. Sometimes they're only 5 or 10 meters thick. Sometimes they're 50 meters thick, but they're quite predictable where they are. Not sure of their formation yet, whether they're allogenous or if they've just been in place with the volcanic clastics. But we're really happy that they're there, and when they're in and around altered volcanic clastics, these turbidites are often mineralized, which is great. So that's these green pieces, these green polygons all the way down. So this is Achilles in the north, all the way down to Hilltop in the south. And we're sure we're going to find more. A lot of them are undercover. So, all right. So honing in on the prospect scale, this is where Fender have done a lot of work. Looking at you, Andrew, salute. Earlier this year, it was fantastic. They did a big 27-line IP survey because IP finds sulfides and maps the resistivity, often maps your rhyolite domes, so you can use it as a fantastic mapping tool. So we're 20 kilometers northwest of Lake Cargelligo. We drilled this 2.5 years ago, and our third drill hole, we hit 5 meters at 5% lead zinc, up to 10.5% lead zinc with a bit of copper. And we've had sporadic gold through here, 85 meters at 0.13 copper. We're in a system, but it was so wet 2 years ago. You remember that double La Nina event that just wouldn't stop raining. And we were doing these 150-meter step outs along this track, and we were using our landholder's tractor to drag the bloody drill rig along the track. It was getting bogged and bogged, and it was pretty horrendous. It dried out a little bit, and we were able to get a drill rig onto this little rocky island in the paddock and drill. And that rocky island is where this turbidite, silicified altered turbidite, comes from, with a huge amount of antimony and arsenic in it. And so that island there is quite altered, and that's why it sort of sticks out of the ground a bit. They haven't been able to crop that island. So we drilled from there, and really were able to work out our facies, but that was it. We just couldn't get to where we wanted to get to. So now that it has dried out, we've been able to do the geophysics there. So what we realized from that drilling was, I mean, the drilling that we did was so important to us in our journey to discovery, because we could work out what was important, what wasn't important in our rocks. We worked out that our favorable stratigraphy was super important, and it needed to be in contact with turbidites to be able to capture the metal flux and actually precipitate some decent grade. Permeability versus permeable versus impermeable rocks were really important. So got a nice slide of what that means from Code's Altered Volcanic Textures. Really important when you're looking for VMSs. What is going to capture your high grade, and lots of it. Major myelinite zones create a great lead in soil anomaly, but invariably you can drill for days in them and never hit good ore or good grades. So in the south of Achilles, which I'll show you soon, we've got a 300-meter wide myelinite, which is just a massive shear zone. It's like a highway for a shear zone, which is called the Achilles shear. It's what we call the primary shear that runs up on the east side of us. We think it's prospective for about 10 kilometers north and south of us. And we are interested in the second order faults and the third order growth faults off those. And we can actually see where the growth faults are because of our varying thicknesses of our stratigraphy. So first order faults are great, but don't go and drill them. go and drill the second and third order faults after you've done IP. Margins of the rhyolite domes, really important, because you don't want to do a 300-meter RC hole in a bloody flow-banded rhyolite that never ends, but you want to be right on the margin of them because they're really hard and create a really nice low-pressure shadow in the boom. So this was the drilling that we did a couple of years ago, and lithology on the left, and alteration on the right. Pink is our rhyolites, but they're volcaniclastics, and then black is the sediments, red are the dacite. So we're getting more felsic as we come higher up in the profile. Everything dips east, and our volcaniclastics are incredibly altered with our most strongest alteration, phengite, illite, muscovite, bit of K-spar through it. But we really worked out that we drilled a lot of volcaniclastics, altered and mineralized, but we need something to capture the high grade. And the high grade, really, we think, like I said, will sit up on that turbidite contact. So that was our hypothesis. This is on the ASX, so you can look at this in detail or talk to me about it later in detail. Super altered rocks. The alteration box plot, which you've got to love, I guess, just shows that our copper, lead, and zinc are all in the most altered rocks, and the most altered rocks should be jammed right up against the turbidites. Typical wispy sort of low-grade textures, chalcocite after chalcopyrite, wispy chalcopyrite through it, a lot of silica alteration, a lot of cerussite, all the good stuff you want to be seeing. And this stuff goes for days. I mean, we've drilled a lot of it. Lead zinc, we have multiple colored sphalerite, red to golden syrup colored, what do you call that, brown, honeycomb, and all the way to white as well. Quite a bit of galena through this in our finer grained units of the volcaniclastics. And but we need to, so that's really our VMS stratigraphic horizon, but we want to see where this has been captured up against the altered, or the turbidite trap. So for us, we think we need to move east into the paddock and south along strike. All right, so when we came up with the hypothesis to do IP, this was the slide that essentially I went to the board with for approval to do quite a bit of geophysics and IP. And I love this slide because it kind of captures geology, geophysics, petrology, everything all in one. And so this is Peel's Wagga Tank Southern Nights discovery. So Wagga Tank in the north up here, and Southern Nights down the south down here. These red blobs are the chargeability halos, and the grey lithology is the turbidites, and the yellow and the blue are the Vivigani Formation, which is the volcaniclastics. Now, Peel's Mines and Wines presentation says the recent Aeromag survey confirms the strongly altered volcaniclastics exhibit a low magnetic response. This contrasts markedly with the Wagga Tank mudstones, which displays a low order but significantly higher response. The mineralized lenses are distributed along the boundary between these two magnetic domains. Now, so here at Achilles, we've drilled, we've got lead in soils, etc., but we're drilling just in the Vivigani, and we've got to find the turbidites, right? So the low order magnitude is our of the magnetic response is our altered Vivigani Formation equivalent, so the volcaniclastics. This slightly higher amplitude but still low mag response is our turbidites. and we see that just on that island where we drilled from, and that's the only outcrop. But we think it comes quite extensive for about 2.5 kilometers south. So we propose that the mineralized lenses are distributed along the boundary between these two magnetic domains. So our hypothesis was we would get a chargeable response along the contact of the volcaniclastics and the turbidites. So these dots are lead in soil anomalies, which only show up on the hills because everything else is covered by a couple of meters of transported cover. So exactly where, thanks to Saludi for and Rob Angus for pulling this together and proving our hypothesis was somewhat correct. We had this whopping big chargeability anomaly, 600 meters long. It's actually the size of 7 AFL fields, north to south, and it's absolutely huge, and it demagnetized the turbidite. So we think this package here is the turbidite package, and we have a nice second chargeability, again on a repeated lithostratigraphy on the western side. And this one here sits right on this growth fault, and that growth fault is absolutely real. We've drilled it. We've got thick package of turbidites in the north, very thin 5-meter thick package of turbidites in the south across that fault, and a drill hole went through that growth fault, and we've got interfingering turbidites and volcaniclastics. So we really think that basin's opened up, and right on that opening of the basin, you get this beautiful big chargeability zone with a little mag high blip, which could be some pyrrhotite or magnetite in the upper side of it. So we've got two really nice targets that form the basis of our exploration for Achilles going forward. That's it in long section. Our drill holes narrowly missed. This deeper drill hole here missed by about 130 meters into the page, and the bottom of that hole was so altered that we thought that the last 130 meters of that hole was so altered that we called it a silica cemented breccia. And Carol Simpson came along and said, you boys, you're so inexperienced. That is a coherent rhyolite. Welcome to the Cobar Basin. And so now we know that up in the hanging wall, we've got a coherent rhyolite that is so altered that it looks like a breccia. So we're super excited about drilling that. And this one north, in the south. 600 meter long, lead in soil anomaly above it. Everything here looks like it plunges north, and we're super excited about drilling that soon. Then when we take a step out along the 8-kilometer long Achilles shear zone and pull together all the work that Gary Jones did in Santa Fe and WPG Resources in 1997 and 2007. Gary Jones also discovered the North Parks mine, and with Geophysical, and then they went and pegged Cal. He then came over here in a company later and pegged all this ground and did all the early work here, which was just really accelerated our learning here through this Achilles shear. And he really came up with the idea of it being called an Achilles because it looks like an Achilles heel. He recognized these rocks originally and did all this early air core and hit some great results through here, and really defined the Achilles shear zone that we will soon look to do more IP down the shear zone to try and find those openings in that where we have little kinks in the major shear zone or secondary faults coming off it. So 30 kilometers south, almost done, Jess, promise. 30 kilometers south, we've got the Hilltop Target, and this is really where the whole magnetic Rast trough was north-south near Achilles, and then it rips around trending northeast, southwest down here. And I think that, haven't quite worked it out yet, but I think obviously that change in all the magnetic lineage of the rocks is incredibly important in terms of the tectonic switching and where the mineralization sits with respect to the turbidites. Even the turbidites go from trending northwards to trending northeast. And then so everything here at Hilltop, all the foliation trends perfectly north, and all the sulfide-bearing veins are northeast. And that's what's been able to create the open space here. We have done quite a bit of work on this, pulling it together with soils and rock chips, and we've got quite a lot of gold in these gossans that are sitting up on top of this hill. It's 700 meters long, and the gossans, this one here goes for about 250 meters, 450 meters strike altogether, and the IP chargeability underneath this is just spectacular. So that's a gradient. The background image there is gradient array with a nice IP chargeable IP response underneath it, and our soils on top, lead arsenic in soils. And when we found these gossans, we took 43 rock chips across the gossan, and 23 of them came back above a gram. Almost all of them came back above half gram, but 23 of them came back above a gram, 13 above 2 grams, and up to 6.6. And I like that because I like consistency in exploration. I get worried when you get one assay come back at 200 grams and the rest come back below detection limit. I would prefer them all to be sitting around the 2 gram mark. I think that's a fantastic result for gossans that we're about to go and drill under. So we've got the pads made already for drilling this site. And look, these are stacked loads. We can see gossans on surface in multiple stacked loads. CSA, Peak, Federation, all of them are stacked loads. They're never one single big ore body. It's multiple lenses. So each hole hopefully should have multiple intersections through the oxide and the sulfide zones, and directly into this amazing dipole line that just created the most attractive drill target ever, but is actually backed up by a lot of good geology as well. So we have right up in the north our 4th and 5th drill targets. I decided to cut them out of this because it would be too long, especially with the way Cam goes on for so long. But so we're really defining the South Cobar Basin as a whole new district of the Cobar. It's got more volcanics, more volcanic clastics. It's still got the same turbidites. It's been put under all the same stress and strain, and invariably there's been very little exploration here, but as well very little systematic exploration here done previously. And what I'm really excited about going forward is that come the start of the new year, Australian Gold and Copper is going to have $12 million cash in the bank, thanks to our brand new partners, Delin Mining. And we are a tiny market or tiny enterprise value company with one of the largest packages of exploration ground in the Cobar Basin. We are like the worst house on the best street, but the most cashed up house on the best street. So when we have a drill intercept here, we hope that the stock market won't be worried about, oh God, they've got an intersection now. Now they're going to have to go and raise. so they're going to dilute their shareholders again. We don't need to do that. We've got $12 million, and we are going to give this South Cobar trend a massive go because we think it's got what it takes to build a great mining district. Thanks, Jess.